Dr. Stan here at the Genesis Communication Network, coming to you from the hills overlooking beautiful and picturesque Monterey Bay and bringing in the news behind the news, the story behind the story. Hoping to convince you that reality is usually scoffed at, that illusion is usually king. But in the battle for survival of Western civilization, it's going to be reality, not illusion or delusion, that will determine what the future will bring. Well, this afternoon, our guest is Pastor David Whitney of the Institute of the Constitution. And he's going to be talking to you about the fundamentals of understanding our Constitution. But what you must understand is that there really are groups of people, very powerful and very wealthy people in the United States, who hate the Constitution, who want to destroy our nation, who want to circumvent the Constitution, and so they centralize all power in Washington, D.C., which they control. And they control Washington, D.C. because they've harnessed the fractional banking system and be able to create the artificial money with which they've bought the politicians, which they purchased control of the media, by which they control many of our great corporations and banking institutions. And these people have a different worldview. They want a world government, a world empire under their control. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have our troops stationed, according to Pat Buchanan's, in 141 nations. American troops, stationed in 141 nations. Our troops are stationed in Japan. We occupy Japan. We have since 1945. Why are we still occupying Japan and having to borrow money from China so that we can protect Japan and the surrounding nations from China? We still have our troops stationed in Germany, and we're having to borrow money from Europe so we can defend Europe from the danger and the threat of communism, which we're also financing. We have almost 200,000 people in Afghanistan, 90,000 troops and 104,000 contractors fighting 100 members of Al-Qaeda in Pakistan in Afghanistan, and maybe 300 members of Al-Qaeda in Pakistan. Why are our troops there? They're not there. You don't need 200,000 people to fight a force of 400. Our troops are being left there so they can be slaughtered with the coming war with Iran, which our unelected leaders are planning. We're in real trouble, and nobody's telling the American people. We also have another 100,000 troops in Iraq that are ideal candidates to be slaughtered when the war with Iran comes, and it's coming very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, are you concerned? Why don't you check out what we're saying? 100 members of Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. We've got 200,000 people to fight them. David Whitney, you make up the story.
Happen if our federal government remained within the boundaries created by our founders. Those boundaries are our United States Constitution. And long ago, the people in Washington, D.C. have broken through the boundaries created by the Constitution, and they have just been running willy-nilly all over the world, as you rightly say, Dr. Stan, creating an empire, which was the exact opposite of what our founders envisioned. They were fleeing from an empire. They were getting rid of an empire. They did not want to create a new empire. At least the most of them. There may be a few minor players that did want an empire, but the most of them wanted a free nation, and they understood that a free nation only exists, and freedom only exists for the citizens when the chains are put on the government. And to keep those chains on the government requires that we, the people, enforce the Constitution, which we can only do, of course, when we understand the Constitution. Well, last time we were together, I believe we're discussing Article 4, Article 1 of our Constitution is the legislative branch, Article 2, the executive branch, Article 3, the judicial branch. Article 4 deals with the relations between the states. So legislative, executive, judicial, states is a good way to remember the first four articles. And we talked about Congress authorizing the process by a territory becoming a state. And in that process, of course, the land in that state, once the federal government is no longer in control of it, once Congress is no longer in control of it as a territory, the land in that state reverts from the federal government to the state government. That is, unless the land is occupied by a federal fort or magazine or some other military installation. And that has not been the case with our federal government since Theodore Roosevelt on down to today. The federal government has enormous pieces of land it controls, particularly in the western part of our country and Alaska. Enormous 90+% of the states are controlled by the federal government completely illegally. The Constitution does not permit the federal government to control any land in a state, only land in a territory or the District of Columbia. Now, Section 4 of Article 4 of our Constitution is extremely important. It says the United States guarantees that each state shall have a Republican form of government. That's Republican, small r. We're not talking about the political party here. We're talking about the system of government. And before, in our series, we've talked about the vast difference that exists between a republic and a democracy. The easiest way to remember it, in a democracy, the source of authority is 51% of the people that vote. In a republic, the source of authority is fixed law, or as they said in our Declaration of Independence, the laws of nature and nature's God. God's law is revealed in the Bible. That's the fixed standard. And so that law says, thou shalt not murder. It doesn't matter if 51% of the people say we can throw all the Jews in the oven and burn them to death and throw the Christians in as well like they did in Nazi Germany. It doesn't matter. That's not law. You cannot do that in a republic. You can only do such evil in a democracy where 51% of the people can change what the law actually is. So before any state is admitted to the Union, Congress has to examine their constitution that's proposed and make sure that that state has a Republican constitution. That is, government is by elected representatives. The people are not directly involved in making laws. They elect representatives to do that. Another element of the Republican government is that there's separate branches of government, equal and separate, and there's a fixed wall between them, checks and balances to be sure, but they are not to infringe on one another's area of jurisdiction. And the other element in it is that government is to be limited by a constitution and limited by a Bill of Rights. Every state must have a Bill of Rights. When we think of the Bill of Rights, we usually think of the Federal Bill of Rights, which contains 10 articles, but every state also has a Bill of Rights. Here in Maryland, for example, our Bill of Rights is called the Declaration of Rights and contains 47 articles. And it's not unusual that states have many more articles in their Bill of Rights than the federal government. Why is that? Well, because the states were charged with protecting the God-given rights of the citizens to a greater degree than the federal government. In fact, if you read Federalist Paper 45, it's clearly spelled out there that the states are going to have most powers that relate to the life, liberty, and property of the citizens. It's not to be something the federal government is involved with. So to be a Republican government, it has to have a limited government, a Bill of Rights, and to be approved as a state that could join the Union. Now, Article 4, Section 4 also states that the United States will protect the states against two other threats to Republican government. The first of those threats to Republican government is foreign invasion. And usually when we think of foreign invasion, we're thinking about war. You know, the War of 1812, Britain invaded and burned Washington, D.C. to the ground, and then attempted to invade Baltimore, and there was a great battle there at Fort McHenry in which the British did not succeed in conquering the fort there, and were not able to take the city of Baltimore. But we were invaded, and it is the job of the United States government to protect the states against foreign invasion. When that occurs, then the federal government declares war, the Congress declares war, they call up the militia of the several states into federal service, and the chief executive, the president, becomes the commander-in-chief of those forces only at that point in time. The president, by the design of our Constitution, is never the commander-in-chief of any military forces whatsoever unless there is a declaration of war. Without a declaration of war, he is not the commander-in-chief of anything at all. And seeing as we have not had a declaration of war since World War II, all those presidents have acted unconstitutionally.
Hold that thought, David. We're going to be back here in just a moment with David Whitney of the Institute on the Constitution. When men reach 50 years of age, most of them start having prostate symptoms, so Radio Liberty is offering a specially crafted formula called Prostate Support that addresses that problem. Prostate Support contains saw palmetto, pygeum, African bark, pumpkin seed oil, and other products that have been shown in European studies to be beneficial. The product sold with a money-back guarantee. Health experts use this product, so call us at 1-800-544-8927. That's 800-544-8927. Get a bottle of Prostate Support. That's 800-544-8927. 800-544-8927. I use the product, and I suggest you give it a try.
Gold isn't for you? Ted Anderson, president of Midas Resources, one of the world's premier gold and precious metal investing firms. I get it. You wouldn't buy gold if you believed that the government is doing a great job, that the Fed will stop handing out trillions of dollars like bailout candy, that Social Security would be there for you. That's not what's happening. You might even pass on gold if the stimulus package wouldn't fuel inflation, or that the dollar wouldn't lose value, or that your retirement would be secure. If all looks rosy to you, then now is not the time to buy gold. For the realists, there have never been more sobering reasons to diversify with gold. Since 2001, the U.S. dollar index has tanked 30%, while gold has risen 300%. Right now, savvy investors are adding gold to their portfolios. You should too. Find out what they know. Call us and I'll send you 10 reasons why gold will do very well. Free. 800-686-2237. 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.
Terrorism, chemical attacks, dirty bombs, fallout, biological attack, anthrax, and to top it all off, duct tape and plastic. Alarming words for our time. But how do you protect your family during such a crisis? The video Sheltering in Place, Surviving Acts of Terrorism from Biological, Chemical, and Radioactive Fallout was developed by Wayne LeBaron, a health physicist who has served as a specialist in environmental health, communicable diseases, and has worked as a nuclear specialist for the U.S. government. Anyone can follow the simple instructions. It's presented by a housewife as they walk you step by step through the process of preparing your home as a shelter. If you're not the type who waits till it's too late, then you need the video Sheltering in Place. Get the critical information you need now for only $29 plus shipping by calling New Millennium at 888-803-4438 and tell them Alex Jones sent you. That's 888-803-4438 or order on the web at murkywater.com.
As the economy continues to decline, patriots across the nation are preparing for the worst. The world is changing fast. Are you fully prepared? Or will you be forced to eat government soup? At patriotfood.com, we offer you 135 pounds of dehydrated food and 6 varieties of canned meat for half price. And at survivalistseeds.com, we now offer 50 non-GMO varieties of vegetables and over 10,000 heirloom seeds. That's twice as many as our competition for the same price. PatriotFood.com and SurvivalistSeeds.com. Food insurance, just in case. Owned by me, Big John Lipscomb, host of Don't Tread on Me radio show.
The GCN Radio Network, providing the world with hard-hitting talk radio. GCN. Great Talk Radio starts here.
Well, Dr. Stan back here at the Genesis Communication Network, coming to you from the hills overlooking beautiful and picturesque Monterey Bay. Our guest is Pastor David Whitney, and he's talking about our Constitution, about Article 4. Remember, the first of three. The first article is legislative, the second is executive, the third is judicial. We're in the fourth article of the Constitution talking about the states. So go right ahead.
Well, thank you, Dr. Stan. We mentioned before the break that the United States protects the state against the threat to Republican government of foreign invasion. And we have to comment that this envisioned not only foreign invasion that was of military source, but foreign invasion of those who would break into our country, that is, those who would not abide by the immigration laws that existed from the beginning of our country. Certain immigration laws required standards met and so on all the way up. And these immigration laws are just being egregiously violated, and there is no part of our federal government that's doing anything to stop it. I know they had a big brouhaha about, let's put up a fence, but they never finished the fence, which means people could walk right around it. That is a foreign invasion. It might not look like a military invasion, but it is certainly designed to destroy our republic, weakening the states. For example, our state here in Maryland, we are way, way, way in debt, billions of dollars in debt, and yet the governor of our state continues to make this state a magnet for illegal aliens, offering them all kind of benefits illegally, and the state is impoverished as a result of it. This is insanity. Our federal government should seal the southern border and not permit any illegal aliens to come in, because to do so is a violation of Article 4, what the U.S. government guarantees to the states. And I think the states on the southern border ought to be outraged. They ought to be stating that they're not going to stand for this. If the federal government will not do the job that our Constitution has said they must do, then the states will do the job and tell the federal government to get out of the way. Because an invasion, whether military or illegal aliens, is damaging to the state. If they don't think we have enough immigration taking place, well, then change the immigration laws. Allow more people to legally immigrate to this country. Why don't they do that? If they really want more immigration, just change the laws. They don't do that.
But, David, what they really want is to destroy the nation. The Ford Foundation, the other great foundations, want a multicultural, multilingual nation. This is why they've opposed English. English is our official language. This is why when you call so many corporations or AT&T, why you'll get your message in both English and Spanish. This is why here in California, when we passed Proposition, I think it was 187 or 87, was to take away welfare benefits from the illegal immigrants here. Why? The people voted for this. It's the law of our state, but it was challenged in federal court. A federal court held up its imposition, and then Gray Davis, our governor, refused to appeal the illegal and immoral decision of one judge who overrode the opinion of all 40 million people here in California. And when Arnold Schwarzenegger came into power, he did exactly the same thing. They're all globalists. They're all part of this movement to destroy the fabric of our society. And when you understand that, when you understand the real plan is to transfer our jobs and our manufacturing and our wealth to other countries, then things begin to make sense. Go right ahead.
Yes, and they want to reduce us to a third world nation in terms of poverty so that we'll all gladly accept their global domination in the new world order. And that evil plan, I rue the day that happens, and we can fight against it, and we should fight at every level. Well, the second thing the U.S. government promises the states to protect against is domestic insurrection. That is, if there's an insurrection in a particular state that state militia is unable to deal with, then the federal government can, again, nationalize the militias of the several states, call them up into federal service, and the president then becomes the commander-in-chief of those forces to deal with the domestic insurrection. There's only one that I could think of that took place, the Whiskey Rebellion in Pennsylvania after the Constitution. It was a terrible disaster and a terrible farce, and the only black spot that I see on President Washington's illustrious career. But handling those sort of domestic insurrections there should be many other ways to deal with them rather than actually going to war against the citizens of the state. Now, when we come to Article 5, we've talked about Article 4 dealing with the states and relationships among the states. Article 5 gives us the process by which the Constitution can be amended. Our founders recognized their own fallibility. They recognized the possible need for change, and they provided two means of amending the Constitution. But they warned us only to follow the amending process outlined and detailed in Article 5 of our Constitution. George Washington, in his farewell address of 1797, which was the most important political speech ever given, and every schoolboy read it. You couldn't graduate from high school for the past for the first 150 years until you read this document, and it's not read today, because if you read it, you'll discover George Washington talks about Christianity and religion. He talks about things that they don't want the school children of today to actually understand. But Washington, in that farewell address, warns about the amendment process. He says, if in the opinion of the people, the distribution or modifications of the constitutional powers be in any particular wrong, that is, if we didn't do things right, if we made a mistake in our structure, let it be corrected by an amendment in the way which the Constitution designates, which is here in Article 5. But let there be no change by usurpation. For though this, in one instance, may be the instrument of good, it is the customary weapon by which free governments are destroyed. No branch of government has the power to amend our Constitution except through the Article 5 provisions. Not the courts. The courts cannot amend the Constitution. Not the president with any edict that he issues. Nobody can change our form of government legally except by this amendment process. When they do so, illegally, George Washington rightly calls it usurpation. In fact, that's one of the reasons we separated from Great Britain. The king was usurping powers that did not belong to him. He was violating the Constitution of Great Britain. He was violating the charters that the colonies had made with the king and so on, and he was just breaking the law. And today we have so many examples of this violation of the law in terms of amending our Constitution. But again, until the people understand that those are all illegal, that those who are acting on those illegal bases must be called on the carpet. It must be demanded that they obey the Constitution and not illegal edicts, not illegal opinions of the Supreme Court or any other aspect or administrative branch of government. So the two paths that our Constitution can be amended by, the first path involved approval of an amendment by two-thirds of both houses of Congress. So two-thirds of the Senate, two-thirds of the House would approve the amendment, and then they would send it on to the states. And the states would need to ratify it by three-quarters of the states ratifying the amendment. And that would either be by their legislatures directly ratifying it or by a state ratifying convention. And again, that choice would be Congress would direct whether it was a state ratifying convention or whether it was state legislatures that were to approve the amendment. Now, that's the way in which our Constitution has been amended every time. Of all 27 times, that's the way it's been amended every single time to date. And the 27 times, the congressional route of amendment has worked and worked successfully.
All right, you hold that thought. We'll be back in just a moment with Pastor David Whitney.
Heart-related health problems affect millions of people each year. Maybe you're one of the many who suffer from issues related to angina pain, high blood pressure, congestive heart failure, unbalanced cholesterol, irregular heartbeat, or clogged arteries. There is a solution that doesn't involve expensive prescription drugs that only mask the problem and leave you with horrible side effects. If you are ready to live your life free of sickness, pain, and fear, live your life with increased vitality, energy, and youthfulness, and experience your body healing itself, then you're ready for Heart and Body Extract from Healthy Hearts Club. Heart and Body Extract has a 23-year proven track record of using certified organic herbs that make up an excellent formula to balance and support the heart and circulatory system. In as little as 2 weeks, you can feel amazing results when your 2-month supply of Heart and Body Extract today. Call 1-866-295-5305 or go to hbextract.com.
Introducing the most efficient gravity filter available. You know, if you were to throw 100 ball bearings at a magnet, most would bounce off. But if you placed them on the magnet, all would stick. The same principle applies in water filtration. Most filtration systems force water through the filter at 60 to 90 psi, causing water molecules to race through the filter in less than a second. The Berkey Light is different. Water molecules take 5 to 10 minutes to pass through the tortuous path of the self-sterilizing filters. This allows the proprietary proprietary media formulation to remove and reduce pathogenic bacteria, cysts, chemicals, herbicides, pesticides, organic solvents, foul tastes, odors, heavy metals, and nitrates. It is so powerful it purifies raw, untreated water from remote lakes, streams, and stagnant ponds.
Get the Advanced Berkey Life Purifier for only $279 by calling New Millennium 888-803-4438 or order on the web at berkeywater.com. Not yet available in Iowa.
Hi, Alex has been encouraging you to get food. Well, here's an unbelievable chance for you to jumpstart your food savings plan from efoodsdirect.com. Anyone placing food orders on the large volume production run scheduled for the week of March 22nd can get a lot of food for very little cost. For example, with each pre-production order of 3 7-day responders, they'll ship a 4th week of food free. That's buy 3, get 1 free. They'll take orders from now until March 22nd. The following week, they'll produce huge runs of the pre-ordered food, passing the savings to you in this buy 3, get 1 free program. Folks, this is the best chance to stock up you'll ever see. Another example, buy 9 months worth of food and get 3 months free. You've got to go to efoodsdirect.com/Alex for the food buy of a lifetime, or call 800-409-5633. Go to efoodsdirect.com/Alex or 800-409-5633.
You may be new to freeze-dried foods. You may have storable food questions. You may want to buy your freeze-dried foods from a very reputable company and not go broke in the process. Welcome to the Freeze-Dry Guy. Okay, actually, we're more than just one guy. We're a California-based company that's been serving our U.S. military and other government agencies with the finest in freeze-dried storable foods and emergency rations since 1970. See all about us at freezedryguy.com. With Freeze-Dry Guy freeze-dried foods, you can and will be ready for just about any unexpected crisis. Freeze-Dried Guy foods are delicious, require little preparation, and will taste just as fresh decades from now as they do today. Just add hot water and serve. Backpackers consistently rate us #1 year after year as the best tasting and ease of preparation. Isn't that what you want for your family? Visit freezedryguy.com or call 866-404-FOOD. That's 866-404-3663 or go to freezedryguy.com. Freeze-Dry Guy, the best you can buy.
Are you tired of searching for great talk radio? Search no more. We are the GCN Radio Network.
Well, Dr. Stan, back here at the Genesis Communication Network, our guest, of course, is Pastor David Whitney. And David, before we go on, I want you to get your website out, your telephone number, and tell people how they can get in touch with your organization, the Institute on the Constitution.
Thank you, Dr. Stan. It's a great privilege to see all over the country as people are waking up to the problem we have. The problem is our Constitution is not being followed. And so we put together what we call a host kit that really enables anyone with any group of people to communicate the principles that our founders developed our Constitution upon, and then give them a working knowledge of the Declaration, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. And all of these things are essential if we're going to take our government back, if we're going to hold elected officials accountable to the standard. We must know that standard. And so people can go to our website at Institute on the Constitution. The website is iotconline.com. That website, again, is iotconline.com. And go to our web store there and order a host kit or other resources that are available that can help you understand our Constitution and understand how to take our country back. Or if people would prefer to place an order by calling us here on the East Coast during the regular business hours, our toll-free number at Institute on the Constitution is 866-730-9796. That toll-free number for Institute on the Constitution is 866-730-9796. And we're also offering a live course on the Internet that people can sign up and view the lectures on Thursday nights. Or actually, the lectures, if you sign up, are going to be archived, so you can go back and view previous lectures, download the student notes, download the tests, download all the materials you need to take the course in your own home. And that is also available by going to our website, iotconline.com. And we'll be adding courses to that online system as time moves forward. The jury course will be offered later this year and so on. But exciting opportunity to teach unlimited numbers of people our Constitution. And we still encourage people, though, to get a class together because there's an interaction that happens as citizens begin to bounce ideas off of one another, talk about what they've read in the daily paper, what they read about what's happening in Washington, D.C., and so on, and begin interacting with the material to discover what is constitutional and what is not. And that kind of interaction is invaluable. So we encourage classes to be formed all over the country, and we're excited as we see that taking place. As people are upset, the Tea Party movement shows that people are very upset, but that anger needs to be turned into action that's educated, action that's based upon a realistic understanding of our Constitution, Declaration, and Bill of Rights. Well, going back to the second path, the first path for amending the Constitution, we said was the congressional route. That is, both houses of Congress propose an amendment, two-thirds of both houses pass the amendment, send it on to the states, three-quarters of the states ratify that amendment. And I can think of in my own lifetime one amendment that did not make it. Three-quarters of the states never ratified the Equal Rights Amendment. Proposed, passed, and went out to the states and never reached the three-quarters of the states to ratify it. So that's an important check that the states have against just a decision by the Congress. Now, the other route for amending our Constitution is that when two-thirds of the state legislatures, not Congress, but two-thirds of the state legislatures call for a constitutional convention to Congress and propose to deal with proposed amendments. This route has, to this date, never been tried. It takes two-thirds of the state legislatures to call for it, and we are at this point still 2 states away from a call for a con-con, as people like to call it, constitutional convention. Last year, friends of mine successfully informed their state legislature in Ohio that a con-con was a very bad idea, and they were able to kill what was going to be a very close vote, and Ohio was about to become the next state, and then there would only be one state left for a constitutional convention to be called. Why is it that we are opposed to a constitutional convention when our Constitution provides for it? Well, there's several reasons. First of all, the Constitution does not specify how delegates would be selected for this constitutional convention, nor does our Constitution specify what rules of procedure would be followed in that convention, and this means that Congress would probably be the body that determined this. And if you have a sense that I do, that I'm not trusting Congress with anything. I wouldn't trust them with a plugged nickel. Congress is not to be trusted, and certainly we can expect that their devious and underhanded and evil plan would be involved in any element of forming a constitutional convention on their part today. The second element is the danger of a constitutional convention. Excuse me. That there's no guarantee that the delegates to a new convention would share our framers' view of human nature. That is, human nature is fallen and sinful. It's not to be trusted with power. Any power you give to anybody at all must be carefully guarded with many checks and balances. No, most people today that might participate in such a convention probably wouldn't share our founders' realistic and biblical view of human nature, nor would most delegates to a new convention today share our founders' fear of government power. They feared government. They knew that it could be a very dangerous force and that it needed to be very carefully guarded. It was Washington who said that, government's like fire. In a fireplace, it does just fine. You've got limits on it. It's productive. It helps you. Outside the fireplace, what's it do? Well, it burns down the whole house. It's very dangerous power to have in the hands of those that are not to be trusted. The third aspect of this, there's no assurance that a constitutional convention could be limited to a single amendment. For example, the folks there in Ohio, they were calling for a constitutional amendment to call for a balanced budget. That would be an amendment to the Constitution requiring the federal government to have a balanced budget. That's a very good desire to see a balanced budget on the part of the federal government. I certainly voice my concern for that same issue, but a constitutional convention would not probably be limited to that one issue. In fact, there's very little example we have of limiting it to any issue, because we see in the one example we have in our history when delegates from the 13 states were gathered in Philadelphia to amend the Articles of the Confederation. Well, they came out of that meeting with a new Constitution altogether. So we could expect that many new amendments might be considered, or even whole new constitutions, which reminds me, I think it was the Ford Foundation a number of years ago, produced a new constitution. It's just kind of waiting on the shelves that would be, I am afeared, proposed as soon as the Constitutional Convention is called. You can Google it and read what it says. It's a New States of America. And it does not protect your God-given rights, and is a egregious violation of the very structure and purpose of the government. But that's, beside the point. The idea is that there is a new Constitution kind of waiting in the wings if there were such a convention called, and the evil powers, no doubt, would be manipulating who becomes delegates and the rules for those. The whole thing would not go well for we, the American people, in terms of securing our God-given rights. What we need is to return to our Constitution as it was drafted, as it was ratified, as it was originally intended. That's what we need. We don't need a new Constitution, and I think a Constitutional Convention would be a very dangerous thing. And I'm not alone in that thinking. James Madison, who is rightly called father of our Constitution, a year after the Constitutional Convention was concluded, 1788, he said, having witnessed the difficulties and dangers experienced by the first convention, which assembled under every propitious circumstances, I should tremble for the result of a second. So even Madison, who was crafting much of what became our Constitution, he said that it's very unlikely that a new Constitutional Convention would ever give us what we have gotten here in our United States Constitution, protecting our God-given rights to life, liberty, and property, and placing the federal government within very, very clear restrictions that our Constitution and Bill of Rights clearly spell out.
Our guest here is Pastor David Whitney, and we're going to be going to a break, and when we get back, we'll wrap up this afternoon's program right here at Radio W. But just hang on for a moment. We'll be back right after the break.
Where are my car keys? What did I come in this room for? Where did I put that?
A common condition called age-related memory loss is robbing millions of people of their ability to remember and think clearly. And Alzheimer's and Parkinson's are occurring at younger ages, even early 20s and 30s. And there's much evidence that brain inflammation may be the cause. Brain inflammation may also cause depression and insomnia. But there's great news. Studies show by taking special, powerful nutrients, brain inflammation and its damaging effects may be greatly reduced. And that's why neurosurgeon Dr. Russell Blaylock created his brain repair formula to reduce brain inflammation and maintain a healthy brain. So, for a free book on brain health or information on Dr. Blaylock's special brain repair formula, call 1-800-SPECIAL or visit 1-800-SPECIAL.com. 1-800-SPECIAL.
Did you know there is a growing number of researchers who agree that 90% of all disease begins in the colon? Did you know that 80% of all Americans suffer from internal parasites and parasitic infection? If allowed, our bodies are capable of healing themselves. The key to optimal health is not only what we eat, but also a healthy digestive system and a strong immune system. At Freshwater Organics, we offer FPP, a daily organic supplement that helps eliminate parasites, heavy metals, and high cholesterol naturally and safely. FPP, or fossilized phytoplankton powder, has been used worldwide for thousands of uses and is now available from Freshwater Organics. In addition, we offer an entire line of products to help cleanse waste and toxins, strengthen your immune system, and improve your overall well-being. Make FreshwaterOrganics.com your first stop for organic and natural supplements at the best prices. Visit FreshwaterOrganics.com. Again, that's FreshwaterOrganics.com, or request your free catalog by mail by calling 888-949-3570.
Black Berkey purification elements are more powerful than any gravity filter element on the market. These awesome elements are used in Berkey purification systems, and they can also be used to upgrade most other gravity filtration systems. They can purify raw, untreated water by removing pathogenic bacteria, cysts, parasites, trihalomethanes, and chemicals such as chlorine, atrazine, styrene, and MTBE. These elements also reduce unwanted heavy metals such as lead, mercury, and aluminum. Unbelievably, they even remove small microparticulate from water like food coloring particles. Yet, they leave in the nutritional minerals that your body needs. Moreover, because they are recleanable, Black Berkey elements are more economical than the standard disposable elements, providing fresh, pure water for less than 2 cents per gallon.
Get a 2-pack for only $99 or a 4-pack for only $188 by calling New Millennium at 888-803-4438. That's 888-803-4438 or order on the web at berkeywater.com.
Men, are you thinking about the health of your prostate? Recently, New Vitality Health Products gave away thousands of free bottles of the supplement Beta Prostate. Due to incredible demand, they're giving away more free bottles of Beta Prostate to any new customers who call now. Beta Prostate is packed with plant sterols that support your prostate health. Remember, your prostate affects urine flow, sleeping habits, intimacy, and overall quality of life. Beta Prostate is so powerful, you'd have to take 100 saw palmetto capsules in order to get the same natural plant sterols as one Beta Prostate. And if you haven't tried Beta Prostate yet, you can call right now for a free bottle. You only pay shipping and handling. Call 1-800-257-7201. This offer is limited to one free bottle per household. Give your body nutrition that targets the prostate. Call now and try Beta Prostate for free. Call 1-800-257-7201. That's 1-800-257-7201. 1-800-257-7201.
You're listening to GCN, the Genesis Communications Radio Network.
Well, Dr. Stan back here. Our guest, of course, is Pastor David Whitney of the Institute of the Constitution. David, pick up the story.
And so I would argue that a constitutional convention probably will not be limited to a single amendment or even a single series of amendments, and it probably is not the best route to go to deal with an unresponsive Congress. And unresponsive Congress means we need to throw them out of the office. We need to give them the boot. We need other means of affecting the changes of a restoration of our constitutional republic than the constitutional convention route. Now, the final element of Article 5 deals with amendments which were prohibited. There's 2 amendments that are prohibited, and the first one was ending of slave trade before the year 1808. That is, for 20 years, the Congress thought, or the convention thought, that it would be best to give slavery an opportunity to die of its own weight. They looked at the economic numbers. They looked at what was happening in other countries. England had outlawed slavery, and other places around the world. Slavery was a dying institution, and they thought it will die of its own weight. And our 16th president saw that he could use it as a political ploy to actually use it to go to war and to destroy certain elements of our constitutional system, excusing it on ending slavery, which is not at all his purpose, as he revealed in the first inaugural address. But no slave trade could be ended before 1808 by Congress. After that, of course, it could be ended at will. The second element that was prohibited, the amendment prohibited, they could not deprive states of equal representation in the Senate without that state's consent. We know every state has 2 senators, and before the 17th Amendment, those 2 senators were appointed and basically under the control of the state legislature. So the legislature appointed them. The legislature could recall them at will if they began to do things the state legislature did not approve of. So they basically represented the state legislature on the national Congress level. And any state that chose to reduce its representation in the Senate could do so, but it had to be by that state's consent. Now, it's not likely that any state would choose to reduce its representation in the Senate, so obviously that amendment has never even been attempted because the states have sovereign rights that are not to be violated by the federal government or, by any of the state governments. Now, just a comment there on the 17th Amendment, because this was an extremely important change in our system of government. When the state legislatures had a lock on Congress, that is, Congress could never pass a spending piece of legislation, could never pass a declaration of war, could never pass anything except with the state legislature's approval through their senators, we had a much better system of government. Our federal government was kept well within checks and bounds. Its budget was kept small, and it kept out of the lives of the individual citizens of the several states. Very interesting to see what happened after the 17th Amendment was ratified. The government in Washington, D.C. exploded in all kinds of intrusive actions in the lives of individual citizens, exploded in ways that were never envisioned by our founders. They saw that the states, through their senators, were the only thing that would keep the federal government in line. And again, that was due to their view of human nature, that, as Lord Acton has famously said, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. They knew that they could not trust absolute power to Washington, D.C., and therefore the states' legislatures had to have a stranglehold on Congress.
And let me just point out that this happened during the Wilson administration when Colonel House, who was an agent of the Brotherhood of Darkness, controlled the Wilson administration. Colonel House had mystical powers. He was able to control Woodrow Wilson and many of the other people there as well. And it was his influence, this desire to circumvent the Constitution and centralize all power in Washington, D.C., as a stepping stone to creating this one world authoritarian society under the control of this, what I call the Brotherhood of Darkness. Well, you've got about a minute and a half to wrap up the program, David.
Well, the hope is that we can still restore the Republic, because the Constitution is still the supreme law of the land. And we could repeal the 17th Amendment. I know Zell Miller, a former senator, called for the repeal of it. We could change our structure to bring the federal government back into line with the restrictions our founders placed upon it. But it will only happen as individual citizens take action, and the first action they need is to educate themselves, their family, their friends, their fellow churchgoers, everybody they could possibly influence as to what our Constitution actually says and what the view of government and law was of our founders, such that we can create a body of citizens who refuse to let the violations continue of our federal structure, and who demand that the federal government either get back in the box or we, the people, will create a new government, which is exactly what the Declaration envisioned, that if the government at any point becomes violative of its purposes, protecting our God-given rights, then we, the people, have a right to alter or to abolish it. We don't need to abolish it. We simply need to return to the constitutional structure established by our founders.
Well, I think that's really what it's about. We have a constitutional republic. The subversive element has taken over our government, and we need to get people to understand what's happened. These people are traitors. These people certainly should be put in prison. They have intentionally and purposely violated their oath to uphold our Constitution. So thank you so much, David. We'll look forward to talking to you later this week or next week as we round up our programs for this month. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Okay, well, this is Dr. Stan. My voice is a little hoarse because I've been suffering with the flu, but at least we're able to keep on going. So this is the time when I need to remind you out there that Radio Liberty is still primarily listener-supported. If you're in a position to help us, our number, 1-800-544-8927, or go to our webpage at radioliberty.com, and there's a PayPal button. You can help us that way. Then, of course, some of the products that we offer, and one of them is a new product. It's called Prostate Support. For men over 55 or 60 who are having prostate symptoms, it's a great product. It's been used extensively in England and in Europe and found to work very well. And we hope that many of you want to give it a try if you're having those symptoms that are so distressing to men when they get to a certain age. It's known as Prostate Support. Prostate Support. Give us a call at 1-800 888-544-8927. Now, if you need to get a shortwave, because believe me, we're heading into a war with Iran, you want to have all the means of communication you can have. If you need things for your Berkey, extra Berkey filters, or want to lay in an extra Berkey water filter for your family or friends, if you suddenly want to get any of the other items that you would need for the difficult times that lie ahead, our telephone number 1-800-544-8927. Our webpage is radioliberty.com. How can you understand what's going on? Well, you can listen to our programs 9 hours a day on the internet at radioliberty.com. You could get our book, Brotherhood of Darkness, and or the DVD by that title, or the special, which contains a CD or a tape of the talk. But then you'll want to get the DVD on the Forbidden Secret, on the Financial Armageddon. You'll want to get our talk on the World Revolution, where you'll see my interview with Ambassador Smith, where he tells you he was the ambassador to Cuba at the time the State Department and the CIA brought Fidel Castro to power, knowing he was a communist. And if you don't believe there's a close relationship between the communists and the leaders of our country, you need to get David Rockefeller's memoirs. We carry this. We try to carry the documentation that you need to understand what's really going on. And then, of course, we carry Robert Baer's wonderful little book, See No Evil, where he quotes one of the highest-ranking intelligence officials in our country as saying, off the record, when the dust finally clears after September 11th, people will realize this wasn't a failure of intelligence, it was a triumph of intelligence. What happened on September 11th wasn't a failure of intelligence. It was a triumph of intelligence. You need to get our DVDs on what happened on September 11th. They left those people there to die. The murderers are still there. They're in control, and they're moving us towards a war with Iran that is going to have a terrible result. It's only a matter of time. You've got to get the information. We'll be putting on some great programs on the coming war with Iran. Make your preparations accordingly. Tell others, get on the radio, call-in programs. Write letters to the editor. The globalists want a world war. And then pray for America. Pray for revival, but please pray for Radio Liberty, for our provision and our protection.
Hi, Ted Anderson announcing a great way to listen to radio on the telephone. By calling 760-569-7700, you'll be hearing GCNlive.com programs in seconds. Come to GCNlive.com, find your favorite host's dedicated phone number, and hear them 24/7. You heard me right. Every show has a dedicated phone number. Stop by GCNlive.com and bookmark their number today. And again, that's 760-569-7700. We the people grow cotton, weave fabric, engrave ink, embed strips and fibers to protect from counterfeit and carting to a private bank, having it led back at interest, forcing taxes to service debt. This capitalism, or was Jefferson correct when stating a central bank issuing the public currency is a greater menace to the liberties of the people than a standing army? Hi, Ted Anderson. I'm placing a free silver dollar in a book that explains our monetary system. Call for your copy, 800-686-2237. It's time to understand the system. Call 800-686-2237. That's 800-686-2237.